Welcome to Black and Gold Digital Edition, a behind-the-scenes look at your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hi, and welcome to Week 13 of our digital show. I'm Jay Pushkar alongside Mike Fenner and Kent Urbanski. And gentlemen, you guys were in Indianapolis for the Monday night game, and what a performance it was for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It really wasn't easy on the eyes for the first three quarters for a lot of football fans, but the Steelers were able to come back in the fourth and get the road victory. Mike, what did you take away from the game?
A dominant defensive first half, 16-3, and this Colts team was held to about 70 yards in the first half. I think 4 first downs. Pittsburgh dominated the time of possession. They had the ball for almost 22 minutes in the first half. They get behind, though, by a point in the second, but the way they finished the game in the fourth quarter, both sides of the ball, and especially the growth and evolution of their rookie quarterback, you've got to be awfully impressed. This is kind of a turning point, I think, probably the turning point in his rookie year, that is for Kenny Pickett.
Kent, what about you?
Realize that what the standard is the standard and next man up means, right? You know, Benny Snell came in. To me, you know, being on the field level, it looked like he was running with some passion. And I like what Anthony McFarland did, because he really extended some of those drives with some key third down runs. And that's huge to have that type of balance in the game. That's what they needed. Take the pressure off of Kenny Pickett so he doesn't have to throw so much. Keeps the defense rested off the field. Perfect scenario. But poor halftime adjustments when you come,
Right.
you know, you come out and the first thing they do is nearly run a kickoff back. You can't do that. You know, you can't let the other team, you know, who really had no life to them in the first half, let them back into the game like that.
And then defensively, you had a lot of guys really step up. You mentioned about the running backs and the depth at that position, but
James
a
Pierre
lot
with
of
that
guys.
pick early really set the tone.
Huge. Yeah, what can you take away from the role players defensively? I mean, just James Pierre and everybody else involved.
Yeah, and what T.J. Watt brings to the table, because he's now, you see what that does for a guy like Alex Highsmith, and you know, frees him up to make more plays. And you know, again, you know, a guy like James Pierre stepping up and making that key interception early, and you know, taking the wind out of their sails. But you know, defensively, I think they're there, and if they get the rest, and if they're not forced in, you know, on the field so much from 3 and outs, then you know they can do something.
And Mike, once again, Kenny Pickett's demeanor in the post game. I mean, it almost sounded like they barely won the game, and he's like, "Hey, we're still 4-7. You know, we won, but we're 4-7. We still have a lot of work to do." You gotta like that fact that he's still hungry enough to wanting to improve and try to better this franchise.
No doubt, and you can tell he's got that great demeanor. He's got that confidence. It's growing. It's building. And when you make plays on third down in the NFL, it was those winning downs. 7-14 on third down. He made some huge plays in the fourth quarter, especially. I think the big one was the throw to Pat Freiermuth in the red zone, sets up that go-ahead touchdown for Benny Snell on the run. Those were huge plays. He showed a lot of poise, and that's a huge turning point for him in his career. I think back to the defensive side, another huge sequence in the game was not only the turnover on the goal line for Indy, but what led to that. The Colts are going to kick a field goal, right? It's 4th and 2. Pittsburgh jumps offside. Indy gets new life. Then it's third down. Matt Ryan throws a pass to the end zone, pass interference.
Yep.
It's like, okay, they're almost destined to score a touchdown in this drive.
Which I thought was a ticky-tacky kind
I
of
agree.
call.
And then they hand off, and it's a total gaffe by the Colts on the exchange between Ryan and Jonathan Taylor, and Pittsburgh takes advantage of the fumble recovery from Chris Wormley. That was a huge sequence in the game, because they went from thinking they're giving up 3 to, okay, they're probably giving up 7 to not giving up a single point. And that was critical, you know, when you look at the fact that he still got down 1. Had they given up a touchdown on that drive, it could have been a completely different game.
And also looking at that defense, I thought there could have been a lot more sacks in that game. Matt Ryan escaping. He's not a Michael Vick speedster back there.
No.
He looked like he was about 2012 Matt
He
Ryan.
did, right. You know, and I don't, is that a result of over pursuit or what? Missed tackles on him, or is that just his experience as a quarterback? I give him credit for that, but there could have probably been 2 or 3 more sacks that were within inches of happening, and Ryan escaped.
Well, the Steelers are going to stay on the road as they go back into the NFC South, and they'll take on the Atlanta Falcons, and they're back in a dome, so a controlled environment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But how do they build on finally getting back-to-back victories for the first time this year? They're going up against a team and a division that they've had a lot of success so far with this year, already 2-0 in the NFC South.
Well, as Kent just talked about with talking about getting after Matt Ryan, it's going to be a totally different game plan this week, because a guy like Marcus Mariota can make those plays with his feet. And I think that's what the expectation is going to be. So it's going to be a totally different game plan, I would assume, defensively. where maybe with Ryan, he's one of the last of the Mohicans, right? He's
Right.
really one of the last of those guys that stands in there and it's kind of a statue, even though he didn't show that on Monday night. But a guy like Mariota, on the other side for the Falcons, you're going to want to try to have a spy and make sure you don't let him get loose or get outside the pocket, because that's where he wants to thrive, is running the ball outside the pocket. But they're not going to have Kyle Pitts, tight end, the unicorn they call him, out of Florida, torn MCL. Unfortunate news. That was he suffered that on Tuesday. Or he had the surgery on Tuesday, and then it was announced on Wednesday he's going to be out for the season. So that'll be helpful to the Steelers' defensive game plan, not to have to go against him. Cordero Patterson, though, a huge factor.
Right.
Kind of a running back, receiver, return man, kind of an everything kind of guy. They're going to have to make sure they have eyes on him at all times. So I'm interested to see who they match up with him, how they go about that secondary-wise, and just you got to make sure you know where Patterson's at on the field all the time.
And special teams as well,
Yeah.
so
Right.
you can't let them kill you and, if you build a lead and let the team right back in it with a big return, so they got to bottle him up there.
Is that a weakness that we've kind of overlooked a little bit, is just the special teams play, whether that's even punt coverage, kickoff
Right.
coverage?
Well, some open lanes there. No Robert Spillane in that game against the Colts. That was huge. No Miles
Underrated.
Boykin,
Yeah.
who was another special teams player. So,
You hope it's a one-off on that return,
yeah,
right?
I mean, so hopefully, and then in the kicking game, you can control it that way too. Not let them returning it, kick it into the end zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the Steelers' chances in this game though. They're 14-4, 14-2 or something like that against the Falcons. They kind of own the series, but short week going into their territory. It's gonna be tough.
If you win another game in the Dome, do you think about building one in Pittsburgh? I mean,
Right.
if that's the only way they can win back-to-back games, at
You guys-
Indy, at Atlanta, do you think about it?
Yeah, you guys posed that question to a
Right.
lot of the fans, and what can you guys say about the fan base? I mean, we've all talked about it. It's well documented, just Steeler Nation traveling to all these road games. But what was it like in Indianapolis and seeing that turnout? Because we're going to see it in Atlanta as well.
It's unwavering. It's ununbelievable. A team
really
that's won,
is.
three games to that point. They hadn't even won that game yet.
Yeah.
I would say 60% of the dome there was Steeler fans. It was incredible atmosphere, and you could tell even when everything was in the Steelers' control, they were dominant. The signs and everything. They've really this fan base has really taken to the young guys on this team that you can see. They really want them to do well, and I think they're being patient, waiting for it to happen.
Mike, what was it like seeing all that black and gold out there?
It was about a split. Yeah, I was gonna say, you look around and it's like there's not a whole lot of blue in here, and it's Indianapolis. This is Lucas Oil Stadium. It's hard to believe, but in the same sense, not hard to believe because you know how well traveled the Steeler Nation is and how spread out the fan base is as well. But they were making noise, and you could feel it when they were on defense. I mean, it was almost hard for the offense, the Colts, to operate at home. I mean, that's a tough deal, but yeah, they really showed up, showed out, and like Ken said, there's a lot to be encouraged about at this point. And you have to have that patience, at least this season. You're not going to have a winning season every single year. It's been a long time for something like this, but they're clearly making strides and showing why they're going to have a bright future with the.
And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of black and gold in Atlanta this weekend.
No doubt.
It's going to be a busy weekend down in the South. You'll have the SEC Championship game as the appetizer on Saturday, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. We'll be there to cover it, and we'll have much more on that later on this season. Well, for Jay Pushkar and Ken Urbanski and Mike Fenner, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week for Black and Gold Digital Edition.